Have you ever thought about the reasons why countries lose wars? Many times they don't blame their own mistakes. They point fingers at internal enemies or say other nations interfered. After World War I, Germany faced such a situation. They lost, but they didn't accept it was due to better strategies of the other side. Instead, they came up with the stab in the back myth. This myth claimed that the German Empire lost because of communists and Jewish people among them. Isn't that an interesting way to avoid the truth?
Absolutely, it's quite interesting. But myths often cover the real reasons. So we ask, why did Germany truly lose World War I? We'll be looking at various factors like military tactics, economic challenges, and even social aspects. The real story is always more complex. Was it the strategies on the battlefield, or did economic and political errors play a part too? Let's uncover these truths today.
Let's dive into one of the main questions that has puzzled many. How did Germany's powerful army lose during World War I when they believed their army was strong? Many Germans, from leaders to the average soldier, thought they were unbeaten on the battlefield. There were even famous words from Friedrich Ebert, who stated that no enemy had overcome them. This shows how much trust they had in their military skills and accomplishments. Yet, we need to look deeper. Was this belief based on reality, or was it just wishful thinking to keep their spirits up?
That's a fascinating point. Despite the strong belief in their army's capabilities, the reality on the battleground was different. Germany faced challenges from fighting on two fronts, which was ambitious and risky. They attacked France and Britain in the west and had to manage Russia in the east. The Schlieffen Plan was Germany's strategy but had its errors. They thought Russia would take longer to prepare, expecting at least 6 weeks. However, Russia quickly mobilized in just 12 days. Then, Belgium resisted more than expected, slowing down Germany's plans. Also, their move into Belgium brought Britain into the war, which added more pressure. This made things really difficult.
The consequences of those military choices piled up. Britain joining the war due to Germany's actions in Belgium changed the dynamics completely. Soon, there was a deadlock with trench warfare, which was tough and resource draining. The Western Front became a place where advances were hard to make, and a quick victory slipped out of Germany's reach. Von Moltke, a key figure, famously remarked about the war's loss for Germany early on. They were stuck fighting intensely on two main fronts, which strained their resources, an immense challenge that not only tested their military but also their economic and human capital. Want more details like these? Click the Join button. It supports us and gives you access to transcripts alongside other benefits.
Yes, despite their strong position at the start, fighting against such powerful alliances proved too hard. The Schlieffen Plan failed to get the quick win Germany wanted. Their focus had to shift as the war went on longer than they had planned. Facing the British Navy and Belgian resistance meant the fast victory turned into a slow, tiring war. This forced Germany to fight on an extended battlefield, especially now with Britain actively involved. As resources grew thin, keeping up with the demands on both fronts showed Germany the capitulation of the strategic planning against the might of combined Allied forces that were better resourced.
Let's move on from the battlefield to the point about Germany's economic state during the war. At first, Germany seemed strong. They had a lot of steel, which was important for making weapons and machines. They were the most industrialized country in Europe at the time. This gave them a big advantage at the start of the war. But having a strong industry is not just about having many factories and workers. It also means getting what you need for production, like raw materials.
Definitely, raw materials are key, and this is where things start to turn. Britain used its powerful navy to block German ports. This naval blockade made it hard for Germany to get important supplies like chemicals for making explosives. Suddenly, it wasn't just about producing weapons, but about having the right resources to make them. The shortages became more serious as the war went on. For example, they really needed materials like nitrate and camphor, but the blockades cut these off. Without the necessary resources, it was really difficult for Germany to keep its military effective on the battlefield.
To try to solve this, Germany switched to a wartime economy. This meant all efforts were focused on making war supplies. They made the KRA, a special department, to manage the material shortages. This plan increased their shell production by a lot. For instance, by 1916, they produced 36 million shells, much more than the previous year. But there was a downside to this approach. Civilian life became very hard because resources were mostly for the military. Life for ordinary people changed. Food was scarce and everyday necessities were hard to find. Even with improved production, it wasn't enough.
That situation is a good point. Even Germany, with its advanced economy, was stretched thin. The blockade meant they couldn't replace everything they were losing fast enough. While Germany focused on producing for the war, they were against the Entente's combined economic might. Britain, France, and later the US had much greater resources and better access to the world markets. Plus, Germany's partners, like Austria-Hungary, didn't have strong economies. The Central Powers spent much less on the war compared to the Entente. Less spending meant fewer supplies and less support for soldiers, which affected morale and overall performance.
Isn't it remarkable how Germany's diplomatic strategies fell short during World War I? They had a plan to block Britain's supplies, but instead it only caused frustration. Germany aimed to isolate Britain, but their methods ended up backfiring. While their U-boats aimed at disrupting supply lines, the angry response from the United States was something they did not foresee. This move to hurt Britain's economy ironically led to increased tensions, especially with documented actions like the Zimmermann telegram, which only worsened their standing.
Certainly, the Zimmermann telegram was quite a diplomatic blunder. The idea to involve Mexico against the US was risky and eventually led to the telegram being leaked. The fallout was massive. This only pushed America towards entering the war. To do this when Germany was already facing other strong powers was not wise. These diplomatic missteps allowed the Allies to grow even stronger. Germany hoped for more time to fix their strategies, especially as Russia was pulling away from the front lines. But how could Germany not see the signs and adapt? One wonders why they didn't choose to negotiate a peace treaty when the opportunity arose.
With Russia stepping out of the war, Germany thought they had a chance to redirect their focus westward. The path seemed open for them to perhaps secure a win before American troops could make their presence felt. Yet not long after, the U.S. entry changed the dynamics entirely. By this time, strengthening ties with the U.S. could have stopped further escalation. Instead, Germany chose to act before considering peace talks. It was a tough scenario, but some argue there was a window for a diplomatic breakthrough.
Yes, it appears there were moments when Germany missed the chance for peace. Diplomatic talks could have offered Germany a way out, or at least improved their position to negotiate better terms. Instead, they remained committed to fighting. It seems Germany's leadership hoped that victory was still possible if they struck hard before America was fully involved. But the gamble didn't pay off. As lessons from this period show, understanding when to pivot toward peace can save nations from harsher consequences. Sometimes accepting a smaller compromise early might prevent much larger losses later. Hindsight often reveals clearer paths that were obscured by ambition during the war.
As the war was dragging on, the German command felt the pressure to make a decisive move before the American forces fully joined the fight. Ludendorff, one of the main strategists, planned what he called the peace offensive. The idea was to give a strong blow to the Allies on the Western Front, hoping to force them out of the war. This plan involved numerous operations, starting with Operation Michael, which aimed to split the British and French armies and capture important territories like the Somme region.
It's really interesting how at first these operations seemed like they could work. Operation Michael started in March 1918 and came with some success as German troops advanced. However, they weren't able to keep pushing forward after the initial progress. Other operations followed, but none could break the Allied lines. By then, Allied forces were being strengthened by American troops. It was becoming clear that Germany was running out of both time and resources, their advancements stalling in front of well-prepared Allied defenses.
This failure to make lasting breakthroughs meant Germany could never achieve an outright victory on the Western Front. The strong response from the Allies, especially with the extra support from America, halted their plans. The Germans faced stiff resistance, and their inability to break through became a heavy burden. The initial hopes started to fade, and soon the operations demanded fresh resources that Germany simply couldn't spare. It showcased the limits of German military capacity in such a drawn-out conflict, underlining how crucial outside support was for the Allies.
Yes, the strain on the German military became too apparent. All these operations drained Germany's military muscle. Troops were overworked and supplies were dwindling. Plus, morale was very low among soldiers who had been fighting so hard and for so long without clear success. The German command hoped for miracles, but there were none left to come by. Many soldiers and citizens started to see the situation as hopeless, their spirits broken by continuous setbacks. These conditions played a big part in their eventual defeat.
The arrival of American troops in Europe had a big effect on the war. When they joined the French and British, the Germans found it harder to keep their positions strong. Imagine being in a battle and suddenly having new, fresh soldiers on the other side. It made a huge difference. The Americans helped to stabilize the lines and gave new energy to the tired Allied soldiers who had been fighting for a long time.
Exactly, and American involvement was crucial during moments like the Second Battle of the Marne. This battle was important because it stopped the German advance. The presence of fresh American soldiers helped hold the line. It was also about the new tactics and strong support that they brought. The German army, though skilled, just couldn't match the new energy and numbers of the Allied forces, especially with the Americans helping their allies.
Following this, the Allies launched the 100 Days Offensive. The goal was to push back Germany finally. They worked together as a team, and it became clear when they breached the strong German defense, the Hindenburg Line. This was a big turning point because it showed that the Allies weren't just holding the line anymore, but actually pushing Germany back. The strength and teamwork of the Allies, helped by the Americans, really started to show.
This breach indeed marked a downward slope for Germany. The American presence was not just a physical boost, it was a psychological one too. The morale in the German ranks sank as they realized the war was changing against their favor. The constant presence of American troops meant no respite for the German soldiers. Their strategies had to change, but it was difficult with the ever-growing pressure from the Allied forces.
After years of fighting, the morale within Germany was starting to break down. Being at war takes its toll on everyone, especially the soldiers who go through battles without rest. Imagine the constant stress and the fear that grips soldiers when they see no end to the fighting. The lack of clear victories and the long duration of the conflict weighed heavily on them. How can one keep fighting when it all seems so hopeless?
Exactly. And while the soldiers out on the field struggled, things were not easy at home either. With major losses on the battlefield, hope started to fade. The war brought along with it shortages of food and resources, causing great suffering among ordinary citizens. People felt discontent and started to question why they were still fighting. The unity that once held strong was beginning to crack, showing fractures that words alone could no longer mend.
As the struggle continued, Germany's allies were also starting to fall away one by one. Austria, Hungary, Bulgaria, and Turkey, who stood with Germany, were experiencing their own difficulties and began to exit the war. This shift left Germany more isolated, without much support. It's never easy standing alone when everyone else is stepping back. The loss of allies added even more pressure on an already strained Germany, emphasizing just how much they needed a resolution.
And with the collapse of external alliances came further troubles at home. The German public began to rise in dissent, facing economic hardships that were too much to bear. The struggle wasn't just on the battlefield, but across cities and towns, with daily life becoming more challenging. Given all these, it was becoming evident that Germany could not hold on for much longer without drastic changes. It was clear that seeking peace was no longer an option, but a necessity, driven by the dire internal situation. Thanks for being with us today. If you liked this episode, please hit the like button and comment down below to let us know your thoughts. And hey, if you want more content like this, consider subscribing to our channel. By clicking the Join button, you will get access to the complete text of our podcasts and support us in creating more content you love. We appreciate every one of your likes, comments, and subscriptions.